Hey everybody, this is Perch, and this is a labor of love, clearly. But this is a review of Avengers Annual, and this is part one of a two-part series. And this is a kind of a celebration. I'm going to do more reviews of annuals in general because I think there used to be some pretty awesome stories in it. This one is not. This isn't like a favorite story of all time, but there are some really cool things going on into it, and I just want to present how much story and cool things you could tell in basically two issues, and you're only getting the first one here. So anyway, this is a 1986, the Avengers Annual, $1.25. And in this one, first off, we've got Steve Ditko and Klaus Janson as kind of the finisher here, the artist and the finisher. So pretty interesting piece here, which is pretty cool. Danny Figueroa is the writer. Our comic opens right up with Hawkeye doing his best J. Jonah Jameson impersonation, talking about how much he hates the East Coast Avengers. And this was back when they were doing more things with Hawkeye. They were leaning into the chip on his shoulder. He's trying to lead the team, but there was this rivalry that they were trying to get going between West and East Coast Avengers. So, at any rate, we basically learned they're playing baseball, and Hawkeye just struck out. So they're having this classic East Coast and West Coast Avengers baseball game, softball game, and they're playing in Kansas City, Missouri, the neutral ground. And so they come here to exchange ideas and information, but mostly to have a good time over baseball. So the West Coast Avengers are just like crapping all over the East Coast Avengers. Tiger is like, giving her best trash talk. Wonder Man's in his awful costume. Anyway, Cap is pitching. We got Hercules over there. So anyway, we get, some just good old fashioned pages of baseball. We have Wonder Man here. Again, this is easily the worst costume of all time. He's got this green, red, yellow with jetpack on his back. Anyway, he hits a home run, but Captain Marvel comes in and basically intercepts it. And so anyway, you're getting a little bit of the characters and the personalities. You're getting some Hank Pym refereeing and kind of some different things. So anyway, you're getting you're getting a lot of good characterization. It is definitely silly characterization. It's done during the game. Tiger is doing a bunt, but then leaps over Hercules. You get some confusion, throwing out into the ball. Some fans are nearly murdered by Hercules throwing the ball up into the stand. So anyway, just some good stuff. Mockingbird is batting with her staves instead of a bat. Anyway, lots of good stuff. Just as they're playing, suddenly there's an earthquake, and we see that in this case, it's the Freedom Force. And now this is interesting because these are traditionally X-Men villains. You get Mystique, Pyro, Avalanche, Spiral, Destiny, and then Spider-Woman, who is kind of hanging out there, pissed off. And they were the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, and this was during a time when the government's like, we need a team of our own. Let's definitely take the giant fat guy and the two lesbians and the alien with 6 arms and the Pyromaniac. That's the team for us. Anyway, they are Freedom Force, and basically they're here to arrest the Avengers, and they have warrants, and they kind of go through it, but they're going to stand trial for treason by order of the president. So it's a mystery. This game is just all effed up at this point. So anyway, they kind of debate back and forth. Look, are we going to cooperate with this group of government-appointed officials that are clearly villains, or do we try and comply with the government, or what are we going to do? So there's an interesting little argument, and Cap is like, the fuck? You look at his face, like, these are agents of the government? We have to obey the law, but I can't turn we can't turn ourselves over to them. This is ridiculous. So anyway, Wasp and Hawkeye both split decisions, with Wasp saying, we're not coming along, and Hawkeye says we will. And then, this continues a little bit, but suddenly somebody, and it's Hercules or Iron Man or maybe both, throw a pitcher's cart at Avalanche, and this just turns into a big brawl between the two. So you get a fight, and you get it's a different fight, right? You rarely see the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants here fighting the Avengers, so you get a very different thing. The Wasp fighting the Blob. In this case, he's not eating her, so that's a nice thing. Spiral facing Captain America. We get Pyro lighting Hank's shirt on fire. Again, this isn't a serious fight by all intents and purposes, but it still is fun. And we see the Avengers struggling against villains they normally don't deal with, and it's pretty cool, honestly, to see that. Just some different fights. Keep in mind, this is before Acts of Vengeance, so we're just getting something different here. And it allows some kind of very different fights to go on, including even Spider-Woman, who's reluctantly doing this. She's ashamed of what she's doing. We get to see the Blob kind of headbutting Hercules, and in general, the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, Freedom Force here are actually defeating the West Coast Avengers. It is, by the way, it's striking again. This is when Iron Man has his Iron Centurion costume. Like the costumes are just ridiculously terrible. Klaus Janson is an amazing artist, but he can't make this stuff look good. So anyway, finally it kind of gets down to there's 4 remaining standing. We have Captain Marvel. This is the Monica Rambeau version. We have the Wasp, Wonder Man, and Hank Pym with no shirt. And so they finally, they think about surrendering, but then they kind of escape. They catch the Wasp in a box, and you get a few cases where they're able to fully kind of defeat the Avengers. And Cap basically snuck away to use the phone. And it's like, what the hell? And he's like, no, this is real. It's really a subpoena for you. So they haul them off to the Rocky Mountains, and they get down to this, basically the vault where this was an old prison they used to use in Marvel. And there's Henry Gyrich, or your Grinch, depending on how you want to say it. Anyway, Gyrich is I think more common. And the Freedom Force are being their usual dick selves, and they basically take their seats in the prison box, and they're basically being framed, is what comes on. They've suspected some malevolence. They've sworn testimony that the Vision, when he was a team leader, tried to take over all the computer systems, and this was something that had happened when he was, he had run amok. And then they also go to some of the other fights, and the Avengers come to the conclusion that testimony was given by a former Avenger, but they don't know who. The Avengers are shocked. It's basically somebody who has betrayed them. And these charges are definitely they're not telling the full story. So the Avengers are getting kind of railroaded here, and so Captain America tries to kind of defend himself, but he's angry, gives an impassioned, yelling speech about I believe in the American dream, but this is some sort of nightmare. The Avengers are all happy, but it doesn't really do much, and you see them get put into prison. And so now what? And Spider-Woman, who has just been reluctant and unhappy about all this, decides to go in and jailbreak the Avengers. Now, this would lead ultimately, in many ways, to her joining the West Coast Avengers team. So, anyway, she goes in, she disrupts some things in the prison. The Avengers break out and escape. They fight their way through the vault guards, and you get an Avengers break. It's not everybody, but basically you get Spider-Woman believes she was able to do it without being caught, and you get the kind of a handful of the Avengers. So you have Wonder Man, Mockingbird, Hawkeye, Captain America, the Wasp, Hank, Iron Man, Captain Marvel, Black Knight, and Hercules, and they're basically they hide out in a darkened cave and decide we're going to go and get vengeance and figure out who this traitor is. So that is the first part of this comic. Again, relatively straightforward, nowhere near the depths of that X-Men comic that I mentioned, but it is really kind of the first part of a 2-part story of something at the time that was a pretty big deal. Now, obviously, if you've been reading comics in the last 20 years, or you weren't reading comics in the 80s, the idea of somebody betraying the Avengers was a big deal. It's not like today where there's a shocking twist of somebody who's turned on them every 5 issues. In this case, this was a very big deal. The Avengers were seen as a family. And the contrast here is you had this kind of friendly rivalry baseball game at the beginning. And then, of course, the them banding together to work as one team, which was really what the Avenger crossover was all about. West Coast Avengers, East Coast Avengers, lots of hyperbole at the beginning. In the end, working together to clear their name and figure out what's going on. You also get that added bonus of Freedom Force and kind of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, a different kind of fight. So a really fun issue, wonderfully drawn, and this sets up the next comic. So who was a big betrayer? Can you guess? Anyway, you'll have to wait till the next video, and we'll walk through that. But anyway, do you remember this issue? Do you love it? Do you like it? Seems stupid. Again, this was not an instant classic, but it was fun. And this is an example of kind of the not classic, but a lot of fun comics that would go out back in the day. So stay tuned for that second issue, and thanks for listening.